There was a mill built on a brook. Every day the miller would be at his mill. He was very talented and wise, but he cheated people out of their grain. He had a wife of high nobility, a handsome baby boy, and a 20-year-old daughter, who could only be described as a lovely lady, a lady of purity and destined to be married to an upper-class man of the church. His mill was the only mill in the land, so he made great profit. The Cambridge College began to wonder about his business. When the manciple became sick, he took more and more from the people. The warden heard about these things and confronted the miller, but the miller denied all the injustices. There were two young men who would not stand for the actions of the miller. They were named Alan and John. They asked the warden if they could leave to confirm the miller's evil doings. They would watch the miller grind their grain, for he could not steal from them while they watched, so the warden allowed them to leave. They rode to the mill with grain in hand. John knew the price, so he believed he could not be tricked. To try and trick the miller himself, he told him that the manciple was quickly approaching death, and they must rapidly retrieve their grain. They watched as the miller ground their grain. The miller knew they were trying to trick him, so he decided to steal from them even more than originally, giving them bran rather than their flour. Also, he untied their horse and allowed it to run off into the meadow with the other mares. While the two men were out looking for the horse that was not actually theirs, but rather the warden's, the miller stole half their flour and gave it to his wife to make a cake for his own family's consumption. The men couldn't catch the horse all day, even when they were running so fast. At last they caught the horse in a ditch, but it was already night and raining. They both knew that they had their grain stolen, but they knew the other scholars and warden would call them fools for thinking they could catch the miller. Once back to the mill, they had no choice but to ask for a place to stay. The miller agreed to let them stay in his home and to feed them on request because the two promised to pay in full. The miller sent his daughter into town with the men's money to buy goose, bread, and drink. They all drank and talked while the daughter went to bed. Everyone drank ale all into the night, until John and Alan went to bed near midnight. Soon both the miller and his wife went to bed as well, drunk and happy. Before going to bed himself, the miller showed the two men the bed in which they would be sleeping in that night. It was directly next to the bed in which his beautiful 20-year-old daughter was sleeping in. Everyone went to bed right away, and the whole family began to snore, so the two men could not sleep. The men thought what they were going to do, and joked about the family. One of the men came up with the idea to take something from the miller, and that was his prized princess trophy, like he took their flower. John warned his friend to be careful not to wake the strong and mighty miller, or he will surely be injured. Alan went over to the girl's bed and saw she was lying on her back. He crept close and acted so quickly that she could neither see him or yell. He took her virginity without her parents knowing. Soon the miller's wife awoke to use the bathroom. While this happened, the men moved the baby's cradle to the end of their bed. Once the wife returned from the restroom, she made her way through the dark, looking for the baby cradle in which indicated the end of her bed. She searched at the end of one bed, but could not find it. As she continued through the dark, she finally reached the bed with the baby cradle at the end. She laid in bed with the clerk without knowing. The clerk then began to do things to her in bed that she had not received from her husband in a long time. When Alan was about to leave early in the morning, the miller's daughter told him that his stolen meal and food were by the back door. Alan went to climb back into bed with John, but unfortunately climbed into the bed with the miller. Alan, still thinking it's John next to him, tells him that he slept with the miller's daughter 3 times that night. The miller awakens and threatens to kill Alan after discovering what had happened. The miller tried to grab Alan's throat, but he jumped away too fast and punched the miller in the face. The miller's wife was awakened by the screaming and was confused. She believed that it was the 2 scholars fighting one another. John and the miller's wife leapt out of bed. It was too dark for John to see or find something to fight with. However, the miller's wife knew the house a little better and found a staff. Only seeing 2 men fighting in the moonlight, she saw a nightcap. Thinking one of the students, she slammed it onto their heads. The miller yelled that he was soon to be dead. The 2 scholars then beat and kicked him until he didn't move. The sly foxes got dressed, took their food and meals, and left.